Hi everybody, it's Rachel from Rachthestamper.com, and I want to thank you again for participating in my July Club Kit to Go class. So we're going to be making this really cool card today. Now, I'm not sure that I'm going to say I'm the first person that thought of this, but I didn't ever do this technique before, so I thought it was pretty neat, and it's a different way to kind of stretch some of your supplies. So what I actually did was I embossed these little like palm leaves. So these are again using the Sending Sunshine, so it's using this image here. But what I did was I actually embossed them with white embossing powder, and then to make them a little more fun, I colored over them with our Stampin' Blends alcohol markers. So you can color on top of this white powder. You can use any color, and as a matter of fact, so for the first one, what I did was I did dark and light Mango Melody, and then I kind of went back and added some light Cajun Craze to a couple spots, but you can even do this with some green. So what I'm going to do for this one, and I'm fairly certain I have this, yep. So I'm going to just add some Just Jade to kind of bring this color. So we did Stampin' Just Jade for the sentiment here. And you can see we clear embossed that. So we're going to do a little bit of embossing. So we have some embossing here and some here. And just kind of make this card really fun. It's a fun way to be able to use this if maybe you didn't want to make it into a sunset and you just wanted to use the other components. You could also add in the smaller little leaf image as well. So you can kind of change it up. Now this paper that we use today, and I didn't adhere my card yet because I wanted to do a second version to show you guys, but it basically just goes onto a basic black layer. So you can see this is 4 1/4 by 11, and then this will be 4 by 5 1/4, and all these pieces are already going to be cut in your kit. So this actually uses a piece from this really fun, I believe it's called Whale of a Good Time, DSP. So there's lots of different pieces you could use. You could even cut a little piece of this, but this is a piece of coral paper. So there's lots of different patterns in here. Some of them are very abstract, so you could absolutely make them like this one with the kind of like a little bit of a coral reef. But there's lots of different patterns in here that you could use and kind of bring out something different. So if you didn't want to do this necessarily for a underwater scene card, here's the back of that one. So you have this really cute little fish swirl, and then on the other side it's this pattern. So let me show you what we're going to do today. So again, I do have most of these already cut up. You are absolutely going to need some sort of an anti-powder or anti-static powder tool. So if you have the embossing buddy, you want to grab that. If you have something else you want to use, you want to grab that as well. And then we did use the Stitch Nested Label dies for our sentiment here. And I added a little bit extra with the woven thread sequin assortment, so that goes with that as well. You are also going to need Versamark ink. So let me just put this palm here, and I'm going to make sure, I just want to clean this right before we start, just to make sure it's nice and clean. Okay, so I have a piece of basic black. So again, this is cut to 4 by 5 1/4. So let me move this over, and we will change it up a little bit this time. So what we're going to do first is we're going to take our embossing buddy, and we're just going to kind of go over the top of this. It is extremely humid, but it always is helpful to do this anyway. One other thing I have is a coffee filter and my white embossing powder, so I want to open that up so it's ready. And in the background, I am going to turn my heat tool on, so I do apologize for the noise. But if you turn your heat tool on and you heat it up ahead of time, it actually cuts down on the amount of warping that you'll have on your cardstock. So I have my Versamark ink pad, and you can see it's really dirty and stained, but that doesn't matter. So I'm going to ink this up, and I'm just going to do 3 different stamps. Okay, and then I'm going to take my white powder and sprinkle. Okay. Now I'm not going to put this away yet because we're going to also use clear. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure there's no little stray powder. Just gonna grab a brush and get a couple little spots off. There we go. Okay, and then I'm going to heat this, and you will notice it will become shiny. So you can see this is dull, and this is shiny. So it's really important that it is all uniformly shiny, or else it's basically not set. So I'm going to let this set on the side for a moment just to let it cool. And then in the meantime, we'll go ahead and do our greeting. Now for this greeting, you can do one of two things. So I did this in Just Jade. But if you were going to add maybe some Just Jade to here, you could switch it, but I'm going to stick with that. But you could do this for absolutely any ink color. It does work. It's a really cool technique. So let me just grab my Just Jade. And then once again, we're going to grab our Versamark. I'm going to open up my clear embossing powder. You can see how old this is, but still works. So I'm going to take my sentiment, which is hoping your day is perfect, and I'm going to ink this in Versamark first. Then I'm going to stamp it in the Just Jade. I'm going to aim kind of for the center, stamp it, lift it up, sprinkle the clear embossing powder on top. Now I could have also done the embossing buddy on this. I kind of just got ahead of myself. So if you feel like it is really dry, you might want to do the embossing buddy as well. I just forgot. Let me cover this up. And then all we have to do is heat set this as well. One thing to note, anything that you are stamping in Versamark, you really want to make sure you clean, because Versamark is a very sticky ink, which is great because it helps things to stay wet long enough for embossing powder, say, to stick to, but it also can attract a lot of dust. So you really want to make sure you clean those stamps off when you're finished. So then I'm going to just turn this on again and heat this really quickly. One other thing to note, especially when you are embossing onto white cardstock, you want to make sure you keep your heat tool moving, because if you do keep it in one spot too long, it actually will singe your paper and it can kind of turn it yellow, and that's not really very good. Okay, so then we're going to cut this out, and I believe, let me just make sure, this is the this is the fourth largest die. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up kind of how I want it. And then I'm just going to grab one of my little reused pieces and just kind of hold this in place. So I'm going to die cut this through my embossing machine, or die cutting machine, or both. All right, so I'm going to pop this. Okay, so there we go. So now all we have to do is finish this part of the card and then put it together. So this is nice and dry. Now, one other thing you can do, since we did use the embossing buddy on that earlier, and I thought I had one out, but I didn't. You can either use a microfiber towel or a Swiffer and just wipe off, and it actually will pick up any of the residual dust from your embossing buddy, because it kind of can make it look a little bit chalky. So if you use that, it'll get it off nicely. So I have our piece of DSP, which is going to go down here. So that's all we're going to do. We're going to put this on, and we're going to add this to our card base, which somehow, there it is. I was going to say, I think I misplaced. So this is what it looks like. So I'm going to pull these off, and we'll go ahead and color this and then we'll go from there. So what I'm going to do is we'll start, how about if we start with the leaves? We'll start with light, then add a little bit of dark, and then we'll add a little bit of yellow in as well. So I'm going to just start with the light Just Jade. And you don't have to be really too precise because you really can't see it on the black, which I think is another kind of a cool part. Just kind of color the bottom in. And then if you have these Stampin' Blends, you can decide which one you like better and either do it all yellow or add maybe a little bit of green. So I'm just going to kind of stick to one side with the coloring. You can see the color just a tiny bit on the black, but for the most part, it's a pretty cool idea, be able to do this. We close this up, and then I'm going to go ahead to the dark Mango Melody. Just going over top. And I might bring that green up just a little higher, but I'm going to work with bits at a time. So now I'm going to go to the light Cajun Craze. We'll just kind of bring a little bit. Kind of almost makes it look like a bird of paradise. All right, and I'm going to bring a little bit more of the dark. Kind of makes it look almost a little striking with the darker colors together. So same thing again, I have my dark mango, and I am attempting to stay on just the white, but you don't really have to. If you, when you do this, if you look closely, you can really lightly see it on there, but it's not anything that's like a deal breaker with the color. So a little bit of the light Cajun. I'm kind of just adding randomly. I'm not picking any specific pattern. Then I'm going to go back in again with the dark. I don't know. I'm not sure which one I like better. Now we are going to cover some of this up, so you really aren't going to see too much of the green. But we could always put it down a little bit lower as well. Okay, so that's again the final mango. A little bit of the light Cajun. Oh, there's a couple other little white spots. Only thing you really want to do is make sure that you don't have any white showing through, because then I think it kind of gives a little bit of that mysterious, how did you really get that to look that way? Okay. Again, I know I'm going down here at the bottom and I'm going to cover some of that up, so that might not really be as important, but I think this color looks really nice together. So the mango, the jade, and then the Cajun Craze looks really pretty. Okay, so then what we're going to do is for a little piece down here, so we can kind of put it, that's probably a little bit lower than this one, but the flowers are a little bit lower overall. So we'll just put this down just like so. I am going to put it down with liquid glue just in case I have to adjust it a little bit. So we'll kind of start like that. All right, I'm going to put dimensionals on the back of this little piece here. And, oops, I have my paper snips hiding. So I'm going to just trim a couple of these up. And one more down here. Okay, and then the last but not least, we are going to add some sequins. And you can do these, oh, whoopsie. Wrong side stuck. You can do the sequins with, and I'm going to, so you can see this has that nice pretty finish. You can kind of layer this down. You can put it on top. You can go up. I'm going to go down just a smidge. I think it looks nice. So I am going to put these on with liquid glue, but I'm going to try my very best to use little tiny drops of liquid glue, because when they get too goopy, sometimes they don't stick. So I'm going to just put a really small And I'm trying to do them in 3s because that is visually more pleasing. Supposedly, someone did a study on that. I don't know. So that's what I stick with. Now I am going to grab, I had got this jewel picker. This is actually, I got this on Amazon. You could also use the take your pick tool, but sometimes I still have a hard time getting the sequins to pick up with that. So I use this instead. Break a couple of these, and I'm going to try to kind of switch colors. Even though these are a carryover item, they do really coordinate with these colors pretty well. I think the only one that doesn't really go is the pink, but it kind of still matches in a way. And then you have the peacock. So you could also use peacock instead if you didn't want to use the just jade, or maybe if you don't have it yet. And let's see, one more. Do a clear one. So if you put your glue drops down and you kind of let them sit for a moment, they tend to stick better than if you put big goopy ones, because it'll somehow try to still pick them back up again. So what I'll try to do is put the drops down and let them set for a moment and then put these on, and sometimes they do tend to stick a little bit better. So then the only thing we're going to do, obviously you're going to need to add a Whisper white panel on the inside, which you should have. So it's going to measure 4 by 5 1/4, so that'll go on the inside. And then we're just going to adhere this, so you can kind of take your pick. I don't know, I really like both of them, but now that I've done this with the green, I think I kind of like that better. So I'm going to go ahead and stick this onto our card base, and I'm going to just use a little bit of liquid glue. The reason I like the liquid glue is it does give you the flexibility. If you goof something up, you can still kind of wiggle it, as opposed to using snail or fast fuse. So I'm just line that up, and then you have that black on black layering there, which looks really, really nice. And then, like I said, you can even add these little images stamped on the inside. You could stamp one on the bottom or one on the top. And then you could stamp another sentiment or just leave room to write your message. So really pretty card. And again, something different, because a lot of times with black, you feel like you're limited as to what you can do. But you stamp with the white embossing powder and then use your Stamp and Write markers. Or if you have another type of an alcohol marker, I'm pretty sure you could use any one. But these are the first alcohol markers I've ever had. I do like them. They last a lot. One bit of advice I will say is that when you use these, you really want to be gentle on the tip. You want to try not to push really hard, because it will actually fray the tips of them. But when you color, you just color really with a nice gentle touch. I mean, you can see I'm putting very little effort into this, and it's giving a lot of color with it. So kind of the more gentle you seem to be, the longer they'll work. The bullet tip is much better if you're trying to get a really fine detail of something. So this end does work well, but I probably use the brush tip more. But I want to thank you guys so much for joining me again for this class. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to either send me a message at rachthestamper@gmail.com. You can also leave a comment here. These videos are exclusive to the July card kit, so only people who are able to see this are the people who purchased the card kit. So feel free to leave a comment here on YouTube as well. If you enjoyed this video, you can also give me a thumbs up. I do appreciate that. And if you haven't already, I do post other videos here to YouTube, so please make sure that you subscribe. And I'll look forward to hearing from you guys really soon. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this card.